Number three. Number three on my list is the famous Sahabi Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, Salamullahi alayhi, also known as Jundub ibn Junada al-Ghifari. I see a lot of some people in the audience are going, well, like, yeah, Abu Dharr squad. Abu Dharr is amazing. Abu Dharr, if I had to, since I've been like giving giving them nicknames, like, you know, Bilal is the mu'adhin, Miqdad is like the cavalier, you know, the warrior. If I had to give one for Abu Dharr is, according to Dr. Ali Shariati, he's really famous for promoting this view. He believes that Abu Dharr is the first socialist in Islamic history. And I tend to agree with him here when we examine his biography. So Abu Dharr is from, there's a hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He said, Abu Dharr in his humility is like Isa alayhi salam. And so there are examples of the Prophet comparing certain companions of his to the Anbiya. And this is probably one of the more famous ones. When he says Abu Dharr in his humility reminds me of Nabi Isa alayhi wa ala nabiyina afdal salatu wassalam. And another hadith, he says, there is no one under the sky and on top of the earth that is more honest than Abu Dharr. A pillar of honesty. Abu Dharr radwanullahi ta'ala alayh. And so Abu Dharr, his story is one of the most interesting, but it has one of the most tragic deaths, or tragic endings, spoiler alert. Abu Dharr radwanullahi ta'ala alayh, it is not known exactly when he died, or when he was born, excuse me. And so Abu Dharr radwanullahi ta'ala alayh, he in his early life, he is a monotheist, and his conversion to Islam is one of the most hilarious, yet one of the most beautiful stories I have ever come across in Islamic history. Like, out of all the conversion stories, some of the Sahaba have some like really, you know, good origin stories. Some of them have like really bad ones. Some of them have, you know, in the middle. Some of them we don't even know how they converted. We just know they're like one of the early ones. But Abu Dharr has one of the funniest conversion stories in Islamic history, and I'm going to narrate it for you. And so Abu Dharr, it is said that when he was preaching to his tribe, they asked him, like, Abu Dharr, what guided you to monotheism? It's like, because even before Islam, before he became a Muslim, he was a muwahhid. He believed in one God. He was like Waraqa ibn Nawfal and like, you know, Bani Hashim, upon the idea that, yes, there is one God out there. The idea of multiple gods does not make sense to me. And so Abu Dharr, he said, the story of how he became a monotheist is that he says, you know, my parents used to take me to like this temple that we built, this little shack, and we had these idols that we had. You know, each tribe had its own idol. And I would be like, Mom, why are we leaving our food? You know, coming across food here in the middle of the desert is not easy. Why are we leaving our food in front of this like statue? And she's like, oh, son, you don't understand. This food is for the gods. Like, sorry, this food is for the gods, right? And so when you know, Allah to like Hubal or whatever, when we're all asleep, he wakes up and he eats the food, right? And so Abu Dharr was like, oh, dude, that's so cool. That's awesome. And so one night while his parents were asleep, young Abu Dharr decided, you know what? I'm going to go take some food to the gods, and they're going to be so happy. And so he went and he got a bowl of milk, and he went to the temple. He snuck out to the temple, and he laid the bowl of milk in front of the elder god, right? The big one, the big guy at the end of the temple. And then he went and he hid behind one of the pillars of the shack, and he said, you know, any minute now he's going to wake up and he's going to drink my milk, and, you know, he's going to be so happy with me, and I'm going to like introduce myself, and we're going to be best friends. So young Abu Dharr, I compare his experience to like the way children discover that Santa Claus isn't real when they catch their parents like delivering the presents. So Abu Dharr radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, he says, I sat there by the pillar and I waited and waited and waited, and I fell asleep, and I was awakened by a sound. I woke up and I opened my eyes, like, is it the gods? Abu Dharr, you know what he saw? He saw a fox. A fox had made its way into the temple, had gone to the end of the temple, and had lapped up all the milk. And so young Abu Dharr watched as his offering to the gods was eaten by was drank down, was gulped down by a mere animal. And so the fox, after it had finished the dish, had licked the bowl clean, you know, before leaving the temple, it turned around, raised the leg, and peed all over the statue. And so Abu Dharr was just watching, and he realized right then and there that something was horribly, horribly wrong with his society and with the mentality that he had grown up with. And so Abu Dharr radwanullahi ta'ala alayh, he every once in a while he would get news from Mecca that the Meccans are doing this and the Meccans are doing that. And so one day he got some news. He says, there's a man among the Meccans claiming to be a messenger sent from the Lord up in the heaven, the Lord of the heavens. And so he sent his brother Anis. He said, brother, go to Mecca and check it out for me. And so his brother went and he came back and said, there's this interesting fellow. He's very well spoken, very respectful, very eloquent, with a face like the moon, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he's calling people to the worship of one God and, respecting your elders and, don't bury your children alive. And so Abu Dharr was like, this is interesting, but you know what? I'm going to go check it out for myself. And so Abu Dharr went to Mecca. And so at that time, the Muslims, people knew there's someone in the city preaching this new religion, but where? That's the secret. And that was Bayt, the house of Arqam. And so, Abu Dharr is asking around. He's trying to find, no one is giving him a straight answer. And so who does he run into but Ali ibn Abi Talib, salamullahi alayhi, young Ali ibn Abi Talib. And so Abu Dharr says to Ali, he says, I'm looking for a place. Like, what are you looking for? He's, there's this guy named Muhammad. I don't know if you've heard of him. He says, come with me. And so he took him to the house of Arqam and he listened to Rasulullah preaching Islam. And so Abu Dharr, Imam Ali says, Abu Dharr was the fourth person to become a Muslim. The fourth. And so Abu Dharr, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, he accepted Islam. And so he was really enthusiastic about it. He was amazed and astonished with Rasulullah's akhlaq and the way he preached. And so he said to him, Ya Rasulullah, this is amazing. This is incredible. We got to spread this message to everyone. And so Rasulullah said to him, Abu Dharr, be careful. Now is not the time to go public. Abu Dharr is said to be the first Muslim to have gone public with his Islam. What did he do? He said, Ya Rasulullah, I feel like I can go public with this. Rasulullah said to him, these people will hurt you if you do. Young Abu Dharr, he said, no, I'm going for it. And so Abu Dharr went into the haram next to the Kaaba. Back then they were doing tawaf and some people were doing it naked. People were doing all sorts of crazy things back then. Abu Dharr goes up there and he has his face covered. He's wearing a mask and he calls out, he says, oh people, there is only one God. All of your gods are fake. And Muhammad is the messenger of God, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And so the Quraysh, when they heard this, their eyes nearly popped out of their skulls. And so immediately they said, silence that man. And so they all attacked Abu Dharr. And it is said that they bloodied his face and his mouth. As Abu Dharr came back to Rasulullah for the next meeting, and Rasulullah saw him. He was like, Abu Dharr, what happened? He said, Rasulullah, these people, these people of yours, these Quraysh, are some of the most, some of the worst people I've ever encountered. And so Abu Dharr, radwanullah ta'ala alayhi, the meeting is over. He went again, and he did it again. And again, they beat him up. The third time, what happened? While they were beating him up, his mask came off. And Al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, the Prophet's uncle, he cried out, he said, oh Quraysh, may the gods never forgive you. You have brought, ruin upon us. Like, what do you mean? He says, can't you guys see he's from Ben al-Ghaffar? Ben al-Ghaffar, do you know who they are? Ben al-Ghaffar is the tribe that hangs out between Arabia and Syria. If they hear that you're beating up one of their guys, you know what they're going to do? They're going to raid every caravan you send towards Syria. Immediately, the haram was cleared. Everybody ran off. Abu Dharr, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, it is said that Rasulullah sent him back to his tribe to preach Islam. He made hijrah very, very late. It is said that he came to Medina after the Battle of Khandaq. So he left Mecca and he went back to his tribe and he preached Islam to them. Until finally he heard that Rasulullah had established himself in Medina, he came to Medina. While his tribe while he went back to his tribe, it is said that what he did, because his tribe, what were they famous for? Raiding caravans. Abu Dharr, what he would do when he heard that the Muslims were now fighting the Quraysh, anytime they would send caravans up to Syria, whenever they got the chance, he would raid them. And so when he finally came to Medina and he joined the rest of the Muslim community, the hadiths that he narrates, right, from Rasulullah that have reached us, it's very unfortunate. I remember there's a statistic for Sahih al-Bukhari, he has only 14 hadiths. Fourth companion of Rasulullah, but only 14 hadiths. So some of his famous hadiths, there are famous hadiths about him, and then there are famous hadiths from him. One of the famous hadiths narrated, that comes from him is the hadith of Hadith al-Safina. where he says, I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say, my Ahlul Bayt is like the Safina of Nuh, the Ark of Salvation. Right? And so this famous hadith, it comes from Abu Dharr. And so the other hadith that he narrates, he also is one of the people who narrates hadith al-Thaqalain. And so the issue though with Abu Dharr is that, like the other people on this list, when the first Khalifa took the bay'ah from Quraysh, he was one of the people who spoke out against it. Said, no, I heard, we all remember what happened at Ghadir. Why have you people neglected the bay'ah you gave to Ali? And so Abu Dharr radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi was politically sidelined. He didn't have a very big political role in the administration of the first Khalifa and the second Khalifa. But for the third Khalifa, he exploded onto the scene. Because the third Khalifa, when he came to power, his administration was extremely corrupt. As in, for example, his vizier, his main advisor, was Marwan ibn al-Hakam, was the exile of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And Uthman used to take a lot of rulings from Ka'b al-Ahbar. There was an infamous incident where Uthman asked Ka'b al-Ahbar, he said, as the ruler of the Ummah, is it halal for me to take a loan from the Baytul Mal? And so he said, yeah, of course, you're the ruler of the Muslim Ummah, of course you can take from Baytul Mal. And so Abu Dharr, when he heard this, he said to Ka'b al-Ahbar, he said, Yabn al-Yahudain, O son of the two Jews. As in Imam Ali salamullah alayhi, when Abu ibn Muljim la'anahullah struck him, he called him Ibn al-Yahudiyya, Ka'b al-Ahbar Ibn al-Yahudain. He said to him, what ayah of the Quran or what narration from the Prophet did you base this ruling, or are you making them up? And so Abu Dharr was one of the most outspoken critics of the third Khalifa, one of the most outspoken. And he had many outspoken critics, but Abu Dharr stands out because Abu Dharr specifically had an issue with the way the money of the Muslims was being spent under the administration of Uthman. As in, Abu Dharr nearly lost his mind when he heard that Uthman had taken all the kharaj of Afriqiya, all the tax money of Africa one year, the region of Africa, and he gave it all to Marwan ibn al-Hakam. And so Uthman told Abu Dharr, he said, Abu Dharr, you either stop criticizing me or I will be forced to punish you. And so Abu Dharr refused to stop. And so Uthman, what did he do? He sent him to Bilad al-Sham. He says, I'm not going to deal with you here in Medina. I'm sending you to Bilad al-Sham. Bilad al-Sham, who's the governor then? Muawiyah. Muawiyah told Uthman, he said, leave him to me, I'll deal with him. And so he thought, this guy, when he comes to Syria, I'll just set him up with a palace, I'll give him some money here and there, everything will be fine, we'll smooth everything over. Abu Dharr, when he came to Syria, you know what he would do? Every morning he would pray his salat, and then he would go stand in front of Muawiyah's palace, and he would recite the same verse over and over again. I don't want to recite the verse because I don't have it memorized. But the meaning of the verse, and those who hoard the gold and the silver, and those who hoard the gold and the silver, and those who hoard the gold and the silver. So it is said that Muawiyah, there's this famous incident, the incident of the Palace al-Khadra, the Green Palace. The Green Palace was the HQ, the palace from which Banu Umayyah ruled Damascus. And later, when they became the caliphs, they continued ruling from the Green Palace that Muawiyah had built. It is said that Muawiyah, what he did, he built a palace from mud brick, and then he, when the Byzantine envoy came in, he said, Byzantine envoy. I'm going to give him just a generic Greek name, like Basilios or something, or Basil. He's like, Basil, welcome to my court. Look at this glorious palace that I have built for myself. And so Basil was like, that's interesting, Muawiyah, but you Arabs are trash. He said, what are you talking about? He said, in Constantinople, my emperor builds his palace from stone, and you've built one out of mud brick. He said, you're going to share your palace with the birds, is literally what he told him. He said, you will be sharing this with the birds because the birds will build their nests in here. Muawiyah, you know what he did? He immediately, as soon as the Byzantine envoy left, he said, tear it down and build me one from stone. And so they built the Green Palace from stone. Abu Dharr, when he heard about this, he came into Muawiyah's court. He said, Muawiyah, the money that you used to build this palace, is it yours or is it the money of the Muslims? He says, because if it's yours, then this is israf. This is wastefulness. And I heard Rasulullah say that wastefulness is haram. And if it is the money of the Muslims, then taking this from the money of the Muslims is haram. So there's an interesting story. They say that Abu Dharr, one night, there was a knock on his door. Knock on his door. What happened? He opens the door. There's a servant. Salam alaikum salam. He says, Abu Dharr, here's a gift for you from the Amir. He says, what is this? Is this money? He says, yes, it's for you. All you got to do is, tone down the criticism a little bit. Right? We hear you. We just don't want to do anything about it. Abu Dharr, you know what he said? He says, has everyone else among the Muslims received this gift, or is it just me? He said, it's just you. He said, okay, take it back. And when the rest of the Muslims get it, then you can bring it to me. You know what he said to him? He said, Abu Dharr, I know you are a God-fearing man. I know just how much you fear Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even the Amir knows how much you fear Allah. So do you know what he told me? He said, if Abu Dharr rejects the gift, then tell him, if you accept it, I will set the slave free. He said, Abu Dharr, I know you don't want the money, but for my sake, just accept it. Just look the other way for once. For once in your life, look the other way. It would set me free. If not for yourself, do it for me. Set me free. You know what Abu Dharr said to him? He said, my dear brother, by setting you free, I would be enslaving myself to this dunya. And I'm never going back to that lifestyle. Muawiyah wrote a letter to Uthman. He said, this guy is giving me a headache. I can't deal with it anymore. What do you want me to do? Uthman said to him, all right, send him back to me. He said, send him back how? He says, send him back to me on the worst riding beast without a saddle. It is said that Abu Dharr, they mounted him on a camel without a saddle, and they took him from Damascus back to Medina. I think it was 3 to 5 days travel. And I think in Ansab al-Ashraf lil-Baladri, it said the Sahaba, the companions of Abu Dharr, they were waiting in Medina for his return. When he came back, you know what they saw? They saw the description in Baladri. What does it say? It says the meat around his thighs was dead skin. It looked as though it would fall off. And so Abu Dharr, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, they brought him back to Medina. Again, he refuses to stop criticizing Uthman. So now there's two versions of the story. One version says that Abu Dharr decided, you know what, I'm going to live alone. So he packed his things, he took his wife and his daughters, and he went out to Ar-Rabada. He relocated to Ar-Rabada. The other version says that he was exiled to Ar-Rabada by the third caliph. Now, I personally side with the second one because I don't understand why someone would want to go live in an area that is notorious for being a wasteland. Like if you go live there, you die. You do not last long in Ar-Rabada. Why Abu Dharr would who lived in the desert with his tribe for most of his early life, would choose the most inhospitable region in Arabia to settle down in is beyond me. And so Abu Dharr, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, when he moved to Ar-Rabada, his wife is said passed away. He lost his children. He tried desperately to irrigate the land around him, but it was of no avail. I remember Abu Dharr, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, one of the hadiths that is found in the books of the Ahlul Bayt, I believe it's in Tabrasi's book, if I remember correctly. It said that Abu Dharr, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, was famous for this dua that he recited when his son Dharr passed away. And so when he lays his son to rest, he says, my son, were it not that I had things to do in this world, were it not that I had more ibadah to do, I wish I could go with you. But alas, this is what Allah wants. And I am not going to argue with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so I will miss you dearly, my son. Right? And so Abu Dharr, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, he's lost a son. He's no stranger to loss. And now he's losing his family members one after the other. Abu Dharr, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, it is said that during the life of Rasulullah, him and Rasulullah were traveling. And so he fell behind the rest of the army. And so after he fell behind, he's trying to catch up. He's all alone in the dark. He hears a voice like, Abu Dharr, what's going on? He turns around. It's Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa. He said, Ya Rasulullah, I fell behind the army because I had to do something. And so he said, walk with me. We'll travel together. And so Rasulullah is said to have told Abu Dharr, he said, oh Abu Dharr, you will live alone, and you will die alone, and you will be resurrected alone, and you will enter paradise alone. And it said that when Imam Ali salamullahi alayhi, him and al-Hasanayn came to Abu Dharr before he was exiled from Medina, he said to him, oh Abu Dharr, you showed anger in the name of Allah. Therefore have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have hope in the one for whom you have become angry. The people were afraid of you in the matter of their dunya, while you feared them for your faith. Then leave to them that for which they are afraid. Let them have their dunya and get away from them, taking away from them what you fear them about. How needy are they for what you dissuade them from? and how heedless are you towards what they deny you. You will shortly know who is the gainer tomorrow, meaning on the day of judgment, and who is enviable. Even if these skies and earth were close to some individual and he feared Allah, and Allah would open them for him, only rightfulness would attract you, while wrongfulness would detract you. If you had accepted their worldly attractions, they would have loved you. And if you had shared in it, they would have given you asylum. And so Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullah alayhi, what is he telling Abu Dharr in their last meeting? Be patient, O companion of Rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. SubhanAllah, when I read about the end of Abu Dharr, radwanullah ta'ala alayhi, who does he remind me of? He reminds me of Aba Abdullah and his companions. Because I remember there's a narration about Imam al-Hussein, salamullah alayhi, in his final moments at Karbala. There are two narrations. One of them says, his tongue became like a piece of wood. That's how dry it was out there. And another narration, what does it say? It says Hussein looked like he was chewing on his tongue. You know how at night during the summer, when you can't find a cold spot on the pillow, you keep tossing and turning and searching? Imam al-Hussein, salamullahi alayhi, he's rolling his tongue around in his mouth, desperately trying to find some sort of moisture, some sort of relief, but to no avail. All he had was his patience and his faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like Abu Dharr before him in Al-Rabada. And so Abu Dharr, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, said that when he passed away, his daughter asked him, she said, Father, how am I supposed to bury you out here? I have no one else here. He said to her, Rasulullah promised me that a group of believers would bury you. So have faith, my daughter. And so it is said within a while, a caravan passing by on its way to Medina, consisting of a group of Sahaba, including Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and Hijr ibn Adi al-Kindi and Malik al-Ashtar, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhim, they passed by this area and they saw the body of Abu Dharr. They said, what happened here? That Abu Dharr was exiled here. We were exiled to this area, and this is where we were told to live the rest of our lives. And so this group of people, this group of Iraqi Sahaba, were already on their way to Medina because they had issues with Uthman. With Abu Dharr, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, in his death, he sealed the fate of Uthman ibn Affan. So Abu Dharr, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, to conclude, it is for this reason that he is considered by Dr. Ali Shariati to be the first socialist in Islam, because it was during his lifetime that the social injustice that would become predominant under the Umayyads and the Abbasids, Abu Dharr spoke out against it, as loudly as he could. But unfortunately, because it was, too few people stood alongside him during his own lifetime, he ended up paying the ultimate price for it. And so, without a doubt, Abu Dharr, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, is one of the foremost in faith, and one of the foremost when it comes to, my personal opinions of like the inspirational stories of the Sahaba.